A new state passes a Second Amendment Preservation Act, and they seem to have armed themselves learning from other issues that have come up in court with Missouri's SAPA, and I want to tell you all about it because this is a good one. Before I jump into it, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, and that's GunSpot. GunSpot is an online listing and auction site for new and used firearms and accessories. You can get great deals and never pay out-of-state sales tax or any hidden fees as well, which is phenomenal. GunSpot also has a blog and a community of other Second Amendment lovers there as well. You can check them out. I can't link to it down below because you know why. But I want to thank GunSpot for sponsoring the channel and being a great friend as well. Guys and gals, let's get into this bill passed in Utah that the governor signed on Monday, looking to protect citizens in the state and also addressing some of the issues that were brought up when a federal court said that Missouri's SAPA was unconstitutional. While that's still being hashed out, this bill, this now law in Utah, looks to take some of the issues brought up and work them to their favor. Let's jump right into the bill. Here's the beginning of it. It says, this bill declares that the state will not enforce certain federal firearms regulations. This bill declares the state's commitment to the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and declares that the state and its political subdivisions will not enforce federal regulations that purport to restrict or ban certain firearms, ammunition, or firearms accessories. This is a really short bill. Let's go to the findings. To protect and preserve the individual right to keep and bear arms as guaranteed by the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and the Utah Constitution, Article 1, Section 6, the legislature makes the following findings. 1. The 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees to the state and the state's people all powers not granted to the federal government elsewhere in the United States Constitution and reserves to the state and people of Utah certain powers as those powers were understood at the time that Utah was admitted for statehood. 2. The guarantee of powers to the state and to the state's people under the 10th Amendment is a matter of contract between the state and the people of Utah and the United States as the time of statehood. 3. The 9th Amendment to the United States Constitution guarantees to the people rights not granted in the United States Constitution and reserves to the people of Utah certain rights as those rights were understood at the time that Utah was admitted to statehood. 4. The guarantees of rights to the people under the 9th Amendment is a matter of contract between the state and the people of Utah and the United States at the time of statehood. 5. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution reserves to the people the right to keep and bear arms, as that right was understood at the time that Utah was admitted to the statehood. And the guarantee of the right is a matter of contract between the state and people of Utah and the United States as of the time of statehood. And 6, the Utah Constitution clearly secures to Utah citizens and prohibits unconstitutional government interference with the right of individual Utah citizens to keep and bear arms. Now, I'm going to go over the definitions. There's a couple definitions, but they're important, so listen to them because the federal court issues with the Missouri SAPA was that it negates federal law, which is why the Supremacy Clause was quoted in the ruling, and it limited or forbade police from working with federal governments, agencies, and stuff like that. And it addresses that here in the Utah law, and they did it a pretty good way. Check it out. Federal regulation means a federal executive order, rule, or regulation that infringes upon, prohibits, restricts, or requires individual licensure for or registration of the purchase, ownership, possession, transfer, or use of a firearm, ammunition, or firearm accessory. B, a federal regulation does not include a federal firearm statute, a federal executive order, rule, or regulation that is incorporated into the Utah Code by reference. So just like the Missouri law, it doesn't render federal law kaput, but what it says is that employees of the state cannot enforce it, and that if federal agents want to come in and do it, they have to do it on their own without any help, whether it's personnel or money from the state. Let's continue. The prohibition on enforcement. A law enforcement officer, state employee, or employee of a political subdivision is prohibited from implementing, enforcing, assisting, or cooperating in the enforcement of federal regulations on firearms, firearm accessories, or ammunition. An employee of the state or a political subdivision may not expend public funds or allocate public resources for the enforcement of federal regulation on firearms, firearm accessories, or ammunition. Notwithstanding Section 1 or 2, this section does not prohibit or otherwise limit law enforcement officers, state employees, or employees of a political subdivision from cooperating, communicating, or collaborating with federal agencies if the primary purpose of that cooperation is not the investigation or enforcement of a federal regulation on firearms, ammunition, or accessories. Also does not prohibit them from serving on or participating in federal law enforcement task force programs if the investigation and prosecution of state and federal firearms regulations are part of the duties of the task force or program, or the law enforcement officer, state employee, or employee of the political subdivision is compensated by federal funds, or a state or law enforcement task force or program that receives federal funding, blah, 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 blah. So if the feds want to utilize task forces, then federal funds pay for it, state funds won't. And it addresses also how feds were really upset that Missouri officers were pulled from joint task forces. And JTTFs, guys and gals, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, they need local guys and gals to be successful, because the feds, they need state and local cops to be successful. That's all I'll say on that. So the Utah law now, because it was signed into law by the governor, allows cooperation still, but the feds have to pay for it, and they can't use any state funds to enforce any federal firearm regulations, which regulations don't include law because laws already exist, right? Anything new, which is a regulation or something to affect accessories and stuff like that, won't be enforced in Utah by local and state employees, police, etc. So another state joins the ranks at telling the feds, hell no, know your role, and the states have all of the powers not specifically regulated to the federal government in the Constitution. And what the government's trying to do with all these stupid rules is not covered under any of their powers. Only Congress can make law, not Joe Biden or Merrick Garland or Steve Dettelbach or the ATF or the FBI or DHS or CDC. You name it, they don't have the power that they think they do. People are starting to wake up. States are pushing back, and I think it's phenomenal. Guys and gals, let me know what you think about this down below. And until we see each other again, be safe, stay vigilant, and carry a gun to keep you, your friends, your family, your community safe. And no matter what it looks like, no matter how bleak it can sometimes seem, guys and gals, we have the power. We, the people, have the power. They can't take away our Second Amendment. They just can't do it. I'll see y'all in the next one. Take care.